The gun. Rick was a low-level thug working for Mr. Big, a notorious crime boss in Los Angeles. He had one simple job: get rid of a gun that was used to kill a corrupt cop who was blackmailing Mr. Big. Rick knew better than to ask questions or disobey orders, so he took the gun and drove to a remote location where he planned to dump it in a river. However, things went wrong when he stopped at a gas station to fill up his tank. He left the gun in the glove compartment of his car, thinking it was safe. But while he was inside the store, a young boy named Danny, who was running away from his abusive foster home, saw the car and decided to steal it. He didn't notice the gun until he was already on the road. Danny was fascinated by the gun. He'd never seen one before, except in movies and video games. He wondered what it felt like to shoot it and who it belonged to. He decided to keep it as a souvenir and maybe use it to protect himself from anyone who tried to hurt him. Meanwhile, Rick realized his car was gone when he came out of the store. He panicked and called Mr. Big, who was furious and threatened to kill him if he didn't get the gun back. Rick had no idea who took his car or where they went, but he knew he had to find them fast. He borrowed a phone from a passerby and used an app to track his car's location. He followed the signal to a rundown motel where he saw his car parked outside one of the rooms. He grabbed a spare key from the receptionist and quietly entered the room. He saw Danny lying on the bed, watching TV and holding the gun in his hand. Rick pointed his own gun at him and ordered him to drop it. Danny was startled and scared. He didn't want to give up the gun, but he also didn't want to die. He tried to reason with Rick, telling him that he was sorry for stealing his car and he just needed a place to stay. He said he would give him the gun back if he let him go. Rick didn't care about Danny's story. He just wanted the gun and get out of there. He told Danny to shut up and throw the gun on the floor. Danny hesitated, but then complied. Rick reached for the gun, but as he did, he heard a loud bang. He looked down and saw blood coming out of his chest. He fell to the floor, gasping for air. He looked up and saw Danny holding another gun, which he had hidden under his pillow. Danny had shot him in self-defense, thinking that Rick was going to kill him anyway. Danny dropped the second gun and ran out of the room, leaving behind 2 dead bodies and 2 guns. He didn't know that one of them was the key to a big conspiracy involving Mr. Big and several other people in the city. He didn't know that he'd just started a chain of events that would change his life forever. Danny ran as fast as he could, not knowing where he was going or what he was doing. He just wanted to get away from the motel and the dead bodies. He didn't care about the car or the guns anymore. He threw the keys and the first gun in the trash can and kept running until he reached a busy street. He saw a bus stop and decided to hop on the first bus that came. He paid the fare with the last of his money and sat in the back seat, hoping no one would notice him. He looked out of the window and saw the city passing by. He wondered if anyone was looking for him or if anyone cared about him. He felt a sudden pain in his stomach and realized he hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. He also felt thirsty and dirty. He wished he had a home, a family, a friend, someone who would love him and take care of him. He felt tears in his eyes and tried to wipe them away. He looked at the second gun in his hand and wondered why he kept it. He felt a strange attachment to it, as if it was his only companion. He remembered how it had saved his life, but also how it had taken another one. He felt a mix of fear, guilt, and anger. He decided to get rid of the gun too, but he didn't know how. He couldn't just throw it away like the other one. Someone might find it and use it for something bad. He couldn't give it to the police either. They would arrest him and send him back to his foster home, or worse. He thought about selling it, but he didn't know who to trust or where to go. He'd heard stories about gangs and drug dealers who would buy guns from kids like him, but he also knew they were dangerous and violent. He didn't want to get involved with them. He wished he could find someone who would help him, someone who would understand him and guide him, someone who would teach him how to use the gun for good, not evil, someone who would show him a better way of living. He looked at the bus driver and wondered if he could be that someone. He seemed nice and friendly, always greeting the passengers with a smile and a joke. He looked like he enjoyed his job and his life. Maybe he could help Danny, or at least give him some advice. Danny gathered his courage and got up from his seat. He walked toward the front of the bus and waited for the driver to notice him. "Excuse me, sir," he said timidly. The driver looked at him with a surprised expression. "Yeah, kid, what can I do for you?" he asked. Danny opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, he heard a loud noise behind him. He turned around and saw a man wearing a mask and holding a gun. The man had entered the bus from the back door and was pointing his weapon at the passengers. "Everybody down, this is a robbery," the man shouted. Danny felt a surge of panic and instinctively raised his own gun at the man. "Drop your gun or I'll shoot," Danny yelled. The man saw Danny's gun and laughed. "Are you kidding me? You think you can stop me with that toy? You're just a kid. You don't know how to use that thing," the man taunted. Danny felt angry and insulted. He wanted to prove the man wrong, to show him that he was not afraid, that he knew how to use the gun. He pulled the trigger without thinking. The bullet hit the man in the chest and knocked him down. The bus went silent. Danny stared at what he had done, shocked and horrified. He'd killed another person. He dropped his gun and ran out of the bus, crying and screaming. He didn't know where he was going or what he was doing. He just wanted to get away from everything. He didn't know that he had just started another chain of events that would change his life forever.